have started.
Maharishi. My name is Greg Kingsbury, and I'm from Plainfield, New Jersey. I want to ask you about an experience I've been having. The last 3 or 4 nights, as I've been falling asleep, I'm aware that I'm being pulled into a dream state, and then it feels like I'm separated from myself, and I'm watching my dream, and I'm aware that I'm dreaming, and then occasionally I'm being pulled into the dream, and then again I'm out of the dream watching it, and it's been going on for the last 3 or 4 nights. And then when I wake up, I feel a little disoriented, a little anxious, and I can't get myself together.
Eureka. It's very good.
I know it's supposed to be good, but how come I feel like a little disoriented when it happens when I wake up? I don't feel a part of myself.
Only that has to go off now. The rest is all right. Only that will slip off, and then you have a big sign of Eureka. Eureka. It's a very good state. See, this expression, the way you described it, as if you are pulled out of sleep, you are pulled in the dream. A very vivid experience of this transition of the state of consciousness. And from one state of consciousness to the other state of consciousness, the transition was very clearly experienced, as if you are pulled out. Now what happens in pulling? Someone exerts, some other exerts, and one doesn't exert oneself, one is pulled out. One is pulled out into this. Now, who was that who was exerting, who was pulling? Who was that who was pulling? Now, come on. Someone was pulling you from sleep into dream. And who was he or she or it?
That's what kind of scared me. It felt like some strange power was pulling me.
Strange power. Here is the expression. It was a power, but it was strange. Strange means unknown so far, unfamiliar. Unfamiliar. Now, have you felt that the power which is making us grow from 20 year to 21st year to 22nd year to 23rd year, there is something which is pulling us. We are not making any effort to grow from 20th year to 21st year to 22nd year. Some power is pulling us from one year to the other. Some power. The child, 5 years, now he is being pulled to 6 years. Now he is so much taller and so much fatter, and then he is being pulled into growth. Who is that pulling? Who is that pulling? It is more strange to not know when one is being pulled. Throughout life we have been being pulled. All the time we are being pulled. From year to year, from age to age, from stage to stage. We are being pulled. Never did we think we are being pulled, except when we positively experienced that force. That force has been working in us all the time since birth. But we never minded about it. We never thought about it. Just because we just didn't know about it. And now, suddenly, one experiences. So, it was more strange not to know that I was being pulled all the time. It is less strange to know that now I have started to be pulled from this stage to this stage. It's not a new phenomenon, only it is new on our conscious level. Every day we have been pulled from sleep to dream, from dream to waking. Only this pull was not on our conscious level. And sometime we became aware of it. So the phenomenon was there, only we were unmindful about it. And now the same phenomenon, we became mindful about it. Just we were not minding it, and suddenly it came to us on our conscious level. We appreciated it, and it was obviously strange because this was a new experience. This coming of that phenomena on our conscious level is a new experience. That's why one was scared. It looked to be strange. But it is the revelation, just a revelation of the process that has always been going on. Now, how that revelation came, what is behind it? In principle, what is behind such a revelation? What is behind such a sharp and refined perception, change of consciousness? This is because in meditation we are always experiencing finer phases of thought. That means we are putting ourselves to sharpen our ability of perception. This is what is happening in meditation. The ability of perception is sharpened. And many times we put our mind on this sharpening process, on this refining process, day after day, day after day, day after day. And this refining process, working on the physical level of physical structure of the whole machinery, it is now sharp enough, refined enough to give us those fine perceptions with which we have been unfamiliar so far. All this process has already been going on, from waking to sleeping, from sleeping to dreaming, this change of consciousness. But we were unmindful of it. And now we became aware of it. So it is a matter of giving acceptance to the experience by our clear intellectual understanding that whatever has been happening since long is now open to our direct cognition, resulting from the same principle of opening our awareness to more refined area of perception. It's a very beautiful experience. Something with which we were all the time mixed. It's a very important point to note. Something with which we were all the time mixed. Now we have started to recognize our own status. Our own status of unboundedness has started to be recognized in some measures more than before. Before this, we were engrossed, or in more flat words, we say we were caught up, we were bound. Every experience brought us within boundaries, whereas our real nature is unbounded. This putting ourselves to boundaries has been only due to our ignorance of our unbounded nature. So we were caught up. We were caught up in sleep, deep sleep. We were caught up by the waves of dreams. We were caught up by the waves of activity in the waking state. We were caught up. In the metaphysical language, it's called identification. This is the phenomenon of identification. We are identified. We see the flower. We see the flower, and what remains in our consciousness is the flower. We get sold out to the flower. Nothing else is in our mind, not even the unbounded nature of the mind, nothing, only the beautiful boundaries of the flower, like that, and every little fiber of it. This localizes our unlocalized, unbounded awareness, this localization. And this localization is so profound that we even completely ignore everything else and our own fullness. Both are lost. Our ability to comprehend anything else in the relative and our ability to hold on to our own self, unboundedness, both get lost. And this is called identification. I have identified myself with the flower to such an extent that only the flower remains. I and the flower are one. Not in the sense of that kind of unity which has no distinction, but in a state of complete ignorance. Complete ignorance. The self is totally drowned, and this is a phenomenon which is so strange and so very difficult to understand. It's impossible to understand. And this something so impossible to understand, how can infinity be lost in a point? This is not possible to understand. The phenomenon of ignorance is so strange to us. It's such an impossible phenomenon, but that is taking place. And it's not taking place to go, permanently occupied the whole situation with us. Infinity, lost in a point. This identification is such a terrible, ununderstandable situation. No man of any intelligence can accept or can imagine the possibility of unbounded to be lost in a boundary. The whole room can't be lost unless it's a camera lens. Just this thing. The whole room gets squeezed in a small area. It gets squeezed in a camera lens. Just this thing. How the whole space can be contained in a small thing. The camera explains us. Otherwise, for any common sense, it can't be a reality. The ocean can't be lost in a drop. But it is our experience. When we see a flower, only the flower remains. Where goes our unboundedness, which again is our own direct experience in some state of consciousness, in the fourth state of consciousness. TC, we are all unbounded infinite, absolutely. Coming to the waking, that whole thing gets lost, and this alone is the reality. This identification is a very, very strange phenomenon. Any intelligence doesn't comprehend how such a thing can happen, but this has happened. In fact, in reality, it just cannot happen that one can be lost. This losing oneself, this sense of losing oneself, is just and there is a name to it, delusion. It's delusion. It's not a reality. It's a delusion. It's hallucination. And all are caught up in that. It's not a reality. It's a delusion. It is something which no one has to go through, but it is something which is making everyone go through it. And this is called what? You have heard the word Maya? This is called Maya. Maya. Which in reality doesn't exist. It can't be that unboundedness is lost in a small boundary. It can't be that the ocean is lost in a drop. How can that be? It just can't be. But even though impossible, at least it appears to be. And this phenomenon of impossibility being experienced everywhere is called Maya. The very meaning of this expression, Maya, Ma is negative here. Ma means not. And Ya means which is not. That which is not is Maya. Ma, Ya. Ma, not. Ya means which is not, is Maya. It doesn't exist, but it has overtaken the whole existence. The phenomenon of identification is by that force of Maya. That doesn't exist, only somehow its influence is seen. It's not there. What is there if the ocean is found lost in a drop? No reality is there. In this ocean losing its status, there is no reality. The ocean can't lose its status in a drop. It just can't be. But one sees, one experiences. When one sees the flower, one's unboundedness has no meaning. What has a meaning is this boundary, this joy. This identification of the self with the non-self, identification of the unbounded with the boundary is ignorance. Ignorance of one's own essential unbounded nature.